Have you been waiting for an anime about your favorite budget snack? Well, keep waiting. Because tonight's anime that I'm going to be reviewing is Children of the Whales, which is actually not only not about cheddar cheese flavored whales, but it's not about blue whales, beluga whales, humpback whales, sperm whales. It's not about any of those. It's actually about a sand whale. And if that doesn't steer you away, it's alright. Keep rolling with me because the anime is actually okay. Hey guys, I'm Miasma from Gyre Media, and after that crappy intro, now we can talk about what is a rather interesting anime that I recently watched on Netflix. Children of Whales is a 12-episode series based upon an ongoing manga by Abi Umeda, currently on Netflix, as I mentioned, done by JC Staff, and it's a fantasy show basically about this world where they don't really determine if it's in like a faraway future or something like that. So I'm gonna say it's a different fantasy world where the ocean has become sand, or the ocean just is sand. Like that's how it is. And there's this colony of people that live on basically this big ass like sand boat that they call the mud whale. And this colony of people is about I think like 300 or 400 people in size, and they have lived on this boat for almost 100 years. I believe it's 93 or 94 years at the start of the series. So a majority of the characters have lived on this boat their entire lives and have no idea that other people exist. And could that sound kind of boring? Yeah. I mean, when I discovered that was sort of the premise of this, it sounds pretty boring, but it's okay. Don't worry. Because these aren't really normal people. There's two classes of people that live on the mud whale. There are those called the marked and those called the unmarked. And the marked are given this ability like telepathy, so they can like control like objects, and they can move rocks and move like weapons if they needed to. Just basically the ability to move stuff with your mind using this like weird, when you use it, this like emblem tattoo usually pops up somewhere on your skin or like in the air. I guess that's the mark that they're talking about. And when you engage in that ability, that mark shows up and you're able to move stuff. The other class of people are unmarked, and those are just your regular guys. They don't have any powers. They don't get a ton of the spotlight here in the show, but there is a big upside to being one of the unmarked. You get to live a normal length life, whereas if you are one of the marked ones, you die at around age 30, or sometimes even in your 20s. You die very, very young. And it's a big mystery for a lot of the show as to why that happens. And one thing that I really want to note about the show is if you're someone that hates being like kept in the dark about a lot of stuff for the majority of a show, you're probably really not going to like this. I enjoyed sort of trying to unravel what's going on, even though they don't necessarily hand everything to you. I mean, they tell you a lot of stuff, but it's told from the perspective of children. Our main character, Chakuro, here, is, I want to say he's like 10 or 12 or so. He's voiced by Johnny Young Bosch in the English dub, by the way, who did a fantastic job as always. Chakuro, he's like 10 or 12, and he is marked, but he's really shitty at it. He's not as good with his telepathy as many of the other kids in his age group here on the Mud Whale. And obviously, since they've been on the Mud Whale for 90 plus years, he's lived his entire life on it. So he starts out in the series not knowing anything really about the rest of the world, but he has this deep fascination for recording history, for making this like diary entries and writing everything down, everything that happens to the people on the Mud Whale and to the people around him, and just recording their place in the world, because he feels like if no one records it, then it's going to be lost forever. And which is a cool point, and I think it made him sort of an interesting character, because besides that, he's sort of dull. He's kind of just like your average protagonist guy who's heroic sometimes and a baby at other times. But I enjoyed the fact that he was different than most anime protagonists in the sense that he had this strong sense of what he wanted to do straight from the get-go. He wants to record history, and I like that about him. Now, one day Chakuro goes on an expedition off of the sand whale for the first time they've done this in quite a long time, I believe, to go and see this uninhabited, what they think is uninhabited island. And again, we're kept in the dark about a lot that happened in this world previously, because the kids don't know, and from your perspective, you're not going to know. The only people that really know about the history of the world are the people that have been able to live long enough to see it, being the unmarked ones, who live up to be 70, 80, 100 years old. So there's a chance that some of them, if they were not in the first generation of people to live on the mud whale, they were probably related to that first generation. So those people are the wise ones in this village. They're actually kept in charge, even though they have no power. But they're basically in charge of the society. And now there is a figurehead character that is among the marked ones. They determine the mayor, and the mayor is basically just like a figurehead. Kind of like modern day like Queen of England or something like that, where they have power in certain contexts, but in reality they don't really get to make the decisions. And I kind of like that dichotomy of marked ones versus unmarked ones. And so, like I was saying, there's, whenever they do encounter like an island or something, there are some bit of land or a ship that they can't explore, they end up sending the marked ones out there, because they can actually move their, they have smaller boats to I don't want to say lifeboat, but they have telepathic dinghies is the way I'm going to describe it. They have telepathic dinghies which go on other islands. And in one mission, Chakuro finds himself, I think he brings himself pushes his way onto this one mission, and he, even though he's not that strong, he's not nearly as strong as the people around him, so this is kind of a risky and somewhat stupid thing that he's doing, going onto this island, even though nobody really believes that there's going to be people, because, like I said, nobody's seen anybody in 90 plus years. So it is on this island that they actually encounter another human being, that being this girl named Lycos, who at first is seen with this bloody ass sword, seemingly like she was just in a big battle. Keep in mind, there's nobody else, there's no remnants of people left on this island. And while she goes to attack Chakuro at first, she actually passes out from exhaustion. And, him seeing this girl that he thinks is kind of cute at first, he's like, oh, well, I'm a goody guy, and I'm going to take care of her, I'm going to take her back to the mud whale. And this is a big deal, because she's the first person that they've seen in forever. And so he calls her Lycos, by the way, because on her clothing she has a brand that it's Lycos is written on her clothing. Lycos actually isn't her real name, but I don't want to spoil too much of the show. But that's what they're going to call her for a majority of the series, so don't really worry about that too much. Lycos, an interesting character, sort of like your Rei Ayanami type, really quiet. Not a whole lot of emotion expressed, and there's reasons behind that. There's reasons why she's like that, and so much different than the seemingly very emotional people of the Mud Whale, who are this, for the most part, this, lovey-dovey family, because, they're a very tight-knit group. And so Lycos is a cool contrast to that, and and she's actually voiced by the same girl that did Ed in Cowboy Bebop, also amazing job. But, so they bring Lycos aboard, and through Chakuro meeting Lycos, he's able to unravel a whole lot of mysteries about this world, and there's a whole lot more out there than just the sand and the mud whale. And there are other societies, there's other people, there's people with, there's other people in the world with this telepathic ability that they need to explain. There's reasons why. There's answers out in the world that you can't obtain on the mud whale. And while life could be happy on the mud whale, life is also shitty because you're living an ignorant life. And I liked how the show kind of went that direction, where you can live in ignorance or you can seek answers. And that's a big sort of like argument in this series whether to sit back or take action. Um, for instance, there's a group of people on the Mud Whale named called the Moles. The Moles are a like group of like teenage marked ones, so people with telepathic ability that are trying their hardest to get off of the boat, but they're not going on these missions. They're just rebelling, going on their own, going against the mayor, going against the high elders and everything. And they're actually led by this dude named Oni, who's one of the cooler characters of the show. And he's got this Sasuke Uchiha kind of chip on his shoulder about being cooped up for his whole 20 to 30 something year old life. He doesn't want to live his whole life not knowing the world around him. And you really feel that he just is a bird trapped in a cage, and they keep they will like throw him in jail for a given amount of time and then let him out. Like, did you learn your lesson? He's like, hell no, I want to get off of this thing. Now they don't just like why they don't just like permanently punish him, I don't know. They seem pretty jolly on the Mud Whale for some reason, besides the mole people. And yes, I just called them mole people. Who actually, even though they're not as jolly, they actually seem like they're the smart ones in this case. Now, while I do tend to crap on the people that enjoy living on the Mud Whale in this show, one of my actual favorite characters in the series was Suo, who is actually an unmarked one who is given this high authority of power a couple episodes into the series. He becomes the mayor, and I'll leave it at that. Try not to dig into too many spoilers here, but he's given this high position of power, and I liked how he was somebody without power and was told that he's basically a figurehead. And at the beginning of the series, he's kind of a baby about it. He doesn't really know what to do. He doubts himself a lot. But as the series progresses, he grows a lot, and he becomes way more confident in himself and in the people around him. And he's really confident in his ability that he can guide people in the right direction. Now, he's kind of a stark contrast to the moles and the people that want to like explore the world. He likes the peacefulness of being on the Mud Whale, and kind of he wants the marked and the unmarked to get along, to coexist. And a big thing in this series is people like you'll see people like doing this like almost like the prayer hand sign kind of thing. They do this to control their emotions, because for some reason on the Mud Whale you're not supposed to. It's like this unwritten law that you're not supposed to express too much emotion, especially a negative emotion. You can be as jolly as you want, but if somebody dies, you're not even expected to cry for them. If you cry, they say, "Oh, shush, shush." And I think that's a cool commentary on society, how sometimes people are pushed into not showing their emotions and not being honest, ergo not really being themselves. So we're telling people to put on a mask and lie to the world, and then expecting them to be okay after that, to be alright with society, to just accept the world as it is. Bullshit. And while Suo kind of represents the side that is like, let's have peace on the Mud Whale and stuff like that, he is friends with Chakuro and the other characters, so you sort of get this like both sides element. I'd be interested to see how this character develops later on in the series, because he is more strong-willed now, and I would like to see if his beliefs conflict with other people as the series progresses, if we do ever get another season. In terms of like presentation, Children of the Whales looks pretty good. The background art is really boring. It's like really like brown and stuff, but I get it. It's sand. It's a desert. The character designs are really cool. I like how Lycos looks. I like how Oni looks. I like how when the marked ones fight, they get the cool like markings on them and stuff like that. But the backgrounds really pulled me out of this, because it's so brown and boring. Like Attack on Titan's kind of brown and boring too, but at least there you got like titans eating people and stuff like that. There's no giants really eating anybody here. There is action later on in the series, and even then the action isn't like that great. There's not really many like incredible like looking fights with cool like fight choreography or anything like that. If you're looking for that, it's not really in this show. But overall, the animation, alright. JC Staff did an okay job. I've never really been blown away by a show that JC Staff's done, to be honest with you. And this one really didn't do it. Now, the dub is awesome. I didn't watch any of the Japanese audio tracks, so I can't speak for that. But the dub, which contains Johnny Young Bosch, and I can't think of her name right now, but the woman that did Ed in Cowboy Bebop, and Todd Haberkorn is Oni. He does a great job here. And yeah, just a star-filled cast, kind of to be expected in modern day dubs. But they did a really cool job. And I got a whole bunch of Eureka 7 vibes because you had Johnny Young Bosch playing this kid who goes from kind of having nothing to having this maybe someday romance with this mystery girl with weird colored hair. Greenish hair, by the way. The show actually reminded me a lot of Eureka 7 in a lot of ways, just minus the mecha, and Eureka 7's a lot better, to be honest. But that show got 50 episodes, this one only has 12, so... my overall enjoyment of the show, I would say, I would recommend Children of Whales if you're someone that's into like fantasy realm kind of mystery stuff. If and not necessarily just like not isekai stuff, but anything in a fantasy realm where someone is trying to learn more about the world around them. And that's really the core of what this show is. And maybe also if you're into like a political aspect of stuff, like if you're into like Code Geass or something, where it's one side sort of against another, belief systems sort of clashing with one another, and honestly, like, and you can tie in war into this because that ties into the show later on. I think you'll get something out of this. If you're someone that just loves like straight action, I don't think you're gonna like this. Honestly, some of the characters not that likable, including on like the antagonist side of this. I thought the villains in the show were kind of weak, and I'm a guy that's big on my villains. The show didn't really impress me with them at all, and at times it could be kind of confusing. I can see how like, well, some of the stuff's straightforward, and it's just like, hey, we're on this boat and we're trying to show emotion, and the world is pushing against us, but we press on. Some of like the lore of the world and stuff can be kind of confusing, at least it was to me at times. Once you learn like what the sand whale actually is and what the being marked actually is, I don't know. It took me out of the experience a little bit because I think it made me feel kind of dumb. I don't know. But maybe that's just me. For alternative anime recommendations, I would say Eureka 7, because it's a similar show in terms of characterization, except the characters are much stronger in that show, and it's a mecha. And it's set way in the future and has 50 episodes, so it's a full story, which is a tough comparison to this. The other one that this gave me a lot of vibes about, and I'm kind of sad to say this because I rather don't like this show, From the New World, or Shinsekai Yori. I actually have a review of that show. I know a lot of people like it. It was not my cup of tea, and I'm honestly surprised that I didn't dislike Children of Whales more, because it has similarities in terms of like sort of not likable characters and the whole telepathic power kind of deal, and this whole like mystery about the world. But I just found this world way more interesting than in that show. But if you're into Shinsekai Yori, I think this will be like not as like intellectual as that show, but a mystery about the world around you just the same. And so yeah, let me know what you guys thought about Children of Whales. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was meh? Personally, if they do another season, I'll watch it. If they don't, I'm not going to really lose sleep. It's pretty good. I think it's definitely worth a stream. Check it out on Netflix. If you're into dubs, check it out with the dub. Or check it out with the sub if you hate dubs, I guess. That's probably okay too. If you like what I do here, please follow me on Twitter @GyreMedia. And as always, guys, this is Miasma from Gyre Media, signing out.